Hey, welcome to another episode of the Unspoken Truths of Digital Leadership, living the leadership values. So, I guess we'll be talking about the unspoken truths of leadership, the dark side, and the learnings from dealing with conflict with integrity. And today, I have Sam Winsbury with me today, also known as the personal branding guy. Sam, welcome.
Thanks, John. It's a pleasure to be here.
So, Sam, tell us a little bit about how you came across being the personal branding guy.
Yeah, so I actually kind of stumbled into personal branding, funnily enough. I was working on general marketing. I was essentially trying to build up an agency more on the paid media side, so things like Facebook ads and Google ads. Whilst I was doing that, I was using LinkedIn to actually try and generate clients for it. So I was posting content on LinkedIn, messaging people, building up my audience. And what actually started happening was that people were actually reaching out to me for help with their LinkedIn profiles rather than things like their ads and such. So I kind of just made the natural transition into it. It wasn't something that I went out intending to do, but I stumbled across it and it made sense to transition into it. And then yeah, the personal branding guy has kind of developed out of that. It's quite an ironic call to personal branding, really. The fact that I use something as vague as that personal branding guy is just a bit of irony. Um, but yeah, I've been helping people build personal brands for over a year now, and I'm thoroughly enjoying it.
Awesome. Now, how does leadership come across into your industry then?
Yeah, so much of what we're doing in personal branding is trying to establish ourselves as thought leaders within our space.
Mm.
So people that are not only knowledgeable and following updates and know what's going on in the industry, but people who are actually at the forefront of it. So the ones pioneering new movements, the people actually developing strategies, the people that actually have an opinion on the news and the strategies that are coming out, right? They're not just reading things from a textbook and regurgitating them to LinkedIn. They're actually sort of at the forefront of the movement and of their industry.
And is that an area that how did you fall into to use leadership? I mean, it's for what I see, leadership is a lifestyle choice. You know, it's but it's not necessarily one that everyone wants to be a leader. Um,
Yeah, yeah. So I think, especially when it comes to tying it into personal branding and business, you can't simply be a leader on social media and just build up this perception of yourself because ultimately it's not really built on strong foundations and people are going to see through it when they speak to you in person and your whole reputation is going to fall through basically. So what we're actually seeing with the biggest personal brands, the most powerful personal brands that are actually getting the best results is that off social media they're very good leaders. They're very good communicators. They're very disciplined. They're very persistent. And it's this character that they all seem to share. When you actually go deep into their profiles and study them and study how they are in person, you start to see this commonality between them, that they are great leaders, great communicators, both on and off social media.
and for when you're researching people's profiles, do you go deep dive into their personalities, how they behave, how they show up offline and offline? And is that something that your clients would reveal to you? Because, you know, there's so many people out there that we know on social media, we put up a front or we wear a certain different type of mask where we portray someone else, but behind the scenes, we're not.
Yeah,
I think we're starting to see more of that when we come, I guess, into more exposure where they start working with clients
yeah,
and we start to see people being exposed. You know, they're showing their real selves behind the scenes, behind the camera, behind the social media, and things that don't reveal themselves to other people. And I
yeah,
think this is where we get the the brunt of the influencing marketing industry, where we get people called the entrepreneurs or the scammers, the fake people. How would you go into revealing, you know, finding the right people that you work with as well?
Yeah, and it's an excellent point. There's a very fine line between the kind of entrepreneur, Instagram influencer personality and a powerful personal brand that can actually deliver results. And I think a lot of that is in terms of what other people are saying about the person. So with influencers and entrepreneurs, you'll find quite often that much of their success is coming from what they're saying about themselves and what they portray their lives to be. Sure, you can fake testimonials and reviews and things, but it's often very clear when they're faked, and it's much more difficult to fake 10 social media profiles that are all vouching for you every day. So the best leaders in the online world and the people that are leading in terms of their businesses on platforms like LinkedIn often have a very engaged community of people that trust them, respect them, and vouch for them. Like they believe they are the person to solve a certain problem. And the reason they're doing that is because these leaders, these effective leaders, have actually got the results. So I think a lot of it has to actually be built on results. You can't kind of just forge a personal brand. It has to come from real life results and impact, and then that's obviously going to have a massive effect on the people watching you and develop a community of people that are completely behind you.
So I always find it fascinating that even results could be forged.
Yeah,
When people put in, you graphs and charts and numbers and things like that, they show how much they're making in their bank account. But I think the people that are making the real results don't really need to show their numbers.
yeah. They they kind of they let their results do the talking, but they don't do the talking for their results. So they don't have to big up everything they do. They have a very sort of um, relaxed approach to it. I guess they don't need to show off everything they've done because they know that the results are going to do the talking. If someone dives deep into them, they'll find these results. They'll find these people that are vouching for them. They don't need to really push them out and show them their Miami beach house and whatnot. They don't need to make that clear. So I think that's quite a key distinction between the two sides, the kind of entrepreneur and the people doing good things.
I'm glad you said that. Yeah, it's just a funny world in the personal, I guess, personal branding and
Yeah,
people, what people show up for, and what people get recognized and known for in the industry as well.
yeah, definitely.
And you've been in the LinkedIn world for a while, and you've been. I see that you create a lot of collated videos of news documents or latest news that other content creators are making on LinkedIn. They've been really, really good so far. How did you come across doing those, and what made you, I guess, have the incentive to do it?
Yeah, so LinkedIn's obviously a place with a lot of amazing content creators and people far more experienced and better than myself. And for me, I was consuming all these pieces of content every day and thinking, more people need to see this. So those reviews that I've started sort of doing them weekly now and almost giving people like a news update of what's going on are both a way for me to kind of get more involved in what's going on in the LinkedIn community and also to share the amazing work that other people are doing.
What experience do you have with leadership, and what does leadership mean to you?
Leadership to me is a very difficult concept to define, but I don't know if anyone's seen this picture of it, but there's a picture that's been circling around and it's of a wolf pack. And you're nodding, I think you might have seen it. And they're walking along mountaintop and there's obviously one at the front and people always think that person is the leader, the one at the front, but actually the leader is the one at the back, kind of making sure everything is sound. So I think leadership often comes down to doing the dirty, unglamorous work that people don't necessarily associate with leaders, and going about it in a way that um, kind of you do it without complaining. It's what you're obliged to do. Um, so I think whilst leadership is also a blessing, it's kind of a duty as well.
Mm.
It's there's both sides to it. I think you can't just take it for the benefits that it has. You also have to consider it does take a lot of work, and it's not something that you should take lightly.
And has there been times where you've done leadership roles, or
Yeah,
when you had to
so
step up?
probably the biggest leadership role I've had in my short life is actually captaining my university football team. Now that might
Hmm.
seem quite an insignificant thing. It was, relatively it's quite important. It's a decent level of football. It's not, it's not the best in the world. It's pretty insignificant in terms of all the football that gets played, but it's an important role, and leading people that are both your teammates, your peers, and your friends can be a difficult balance to get. But that's probably been my biggest leadership experience, or the leadership experience that I've learnt the most from, at least.
And what did it mean to you at the time when your coach said, "Hey Sam, take the captain's armband and lead your teammates and your peer groups and your friends onto the field"?
Yeah. So there was obviously an initial sort of, oh my god, really, kind of not really believing what he was saying, which was it was obviously a nice feeling. It's always nice to have that trust from someone, but then very quickly you kind of realize, okay, I've really got a duty here. Anything that goes wrong, it's on my shoulders. So, um, kind of, I wouldn't say it was fear, but a bit of it was kind of like an oh my god moment. This is quite a responsibility.
And was there times where you had to manage conflicts within teams, your teammates, where there are disagreements and things like
Yeah,
that?
and I think that's only natural in things like football teams, is that disagreements are going to happen. Um, so I think it's probably not sensible to measure your success as a leader on the number of disagreements that do happen, but more how you resolve them.
Hmm.
And often when there are disagreements, you can't treat them all the same. Every situation is different. Every player is different. Everyone is coming in with their own agenda, their own backstory, different experiences that they've had in their life, and that affects how they show up on and off the pitch, in group conversations, in their everyday life, right? So I think for the situation that we have where one player wasn't happy about not getting picked is the long and short of it. Um, it was important for me, I think, to kind of step back from the anger I had that he had kind of caused a problem out of it. These things happen all the time. Why is it such a big deal that you've not been picked? And there's people every week that don't get picked and haven't caused a fuss. So after sort of getting over that initial anger, I had to kind of think, okay, there's obviously a reason he's got angry. He's obviously experiencing things that I'm not, and I need to understand it from his point of view. If I can't understand from his point of view why he's not happy with it, I can't make the first step in solving the problem.
So where did you develop that kind of empathy and compassion?
That's an interesting point, actually. I think it's from internalizing the good leaders I've had in the past. So I've had situations where I've kind of caused problems in teams before, and I've maybe not been happy with some decisions, and people have sort of pushed it aside and said, okay, you just need to deal with it yourself. But actually having someone to empathize with you, and they don't even have to agree with you necessarily, they just have to see your point of view and give you that kind of respect to actually understand it from your point of view first. I think you can also take it from the other side. So some of the worst leaders I've kind of worked with
Hmm.
won't take anyone else's opinion. So you sort of learn from the good and the bad, and there's definitely lessons to take from bad leaders, um, about how they made you feel and the kinds of things they did. So yeah, I think internalizing those experiences helped.
It takes a lot of self-awareness to do that.
Yeah, definitely. And I think ego's a big thing here, right?
Mm.
A lot of people are so ego focused that they can't really put that ego aside and have a bit of self awareness to do it. And it doesn't make you any less of a man or of a leader to do that. Everyone has egos. It's ridiculous to suggest that people don't have egos. We all have one in some form or another. And sometimes it is important to put that aside. I've had to do it multiple times, and doing it at this point in time in the season to resolve this conflict was really important. I don't think it would have been resolved if I'd kind of put up a front about it and let my ego get in the way.
Who would you say your biggest learnings from
Ooh.
regarding compassion and empathy? Because it takes a lot for especially guys like us, young age at university, still growing, still learning, how the world works, and freedom that we have, right? And we could always just stay in our ego and not recognize, everything's about me, and no one else. But it takes a lot to step into the shoe of leadership at
Yeah,
such a young age.
yeah, definitely. I think probably a lot of the lessons I've learned are from my mum. It's she's been a big part of my life. Naturally, she kind of when my parents, I think I was 10 or so when my parents split up, and me and my brother went to live with my mum, and she kind of stepped in as this. Whilst my dad was obviously still in the picture, he didn't just disappear. My mum kind of had to adopt the role of mum, dad, cook, you know, um, bread maker, everything. So kind of seeing her adopt those roles and do it so well and hopefully successfully was was huge. And naturally, she's quite an empathetic and compassionate person. So I think that's probably rubbed off over the years in terms of how she's led our family, I guess.
Wow, yes, that's amazing, Les.
Mm.
I'm always a fan of hearing moms that are, lone parent and stepping into all shoes, both shoes of parents, and able to keep, thriving and creating powerful leaders like yourselves. It's always incredible when I hear those stories. What made you choose to do your, especially when you said you started your agency and you're still in university?
Mm.
How did you get into going, oh, I'm going to start business because I'm at university?
Yeah. So my kind of entrepreneurial journey started whilst I was even in secondary school. So I think I was about 17 and literally just had an interest in psychology. I was really interested by psychology. So I teamed up with one of my friends and we were just writing blogs to share what we were learning around psychology. We didn't really have an aim with it. We didn't really know what we were doing. We were just sharing information that we'd learned. That kind of process of starting a blog and growing the blog transitioned into writing blogs for other people and getting slightly more and more involved in marketing, which eventually just snowballed. And I realized I had this passion for sharing incredible ideas with other people, which is almost what marketing starts with, is sharing ideas. And yeah, through that, I built up my knowledge around marketing, tried to learn as much as I could. Um, and then there was also this point where I realized the kind of the turning point, I guess, where it went from a hobby to something that I wanted to create a life out of. And that was on a train. I was with my girlfriend, we were going on holiday. So we were catching a train to Gatwick Airport. And it was early in the morning, so the train was packed with commuters. And I looked around, it must have been 7 a.m. ish. I looked around, and every single person, to a man on this train, looked miserable. And to me, that just said, all these people are going to work. They're probably going to work in London because of the train that we're on. Um, they might be earning a lot of money, they might not be, they might be in really important jobs. I didn't care because they looked miserable. And I just thought, doing that for that train journey for 40 years of my life or so is not something I really want to be doing. So that was kind of the turning point where I thought, okay, entrepreneurship is something that I want to get involved in, and started up a marketing business because of it, basically.
Fantastic. And when you go through like your starting your own business while at uni, there's a lot of sacrifices you have been making. How do you deal
Mm-hmm.
with those when your friends are going out and you're like, oh, I'm gonna work on my marketing material for my business?
Yeah, yeah. So I'm not even going to lie and say that it's not something I struggled with. It's it's a really difficult thing, especially when everyone around you is doing something different, and maybe you don't feel as understood as other people. You know,
Yeah.
you're quite unique. You're doing something that no one else is doing. Not people don't really understand it, especially at that age. It's difficult to understand, right? So I think that was the biggest challenge, was the kind of loneliness of it, almost having to make these sacrifices on my own. But the way I think I kind of overcame that was by having a longer term vision in mind. You know, sure, I could go out and have fun now, and yeah, I had fun at uni. I had a load of fun, but it was just a case of realizing that I need to balance this fun out in terms of what I'm going to want later in life, and kind of having that long term planning was really helpful in almost minimizing the fear of missing out in the current moment.
And how did you come across? How did you manage to deal with loneliness and the thoughts that come in when you're by yourself?
Yeah, and to be honest, for a long time I wasn't very good at dealing with it, and it affected me. It caused a lot of problems, um, but I think it was as a case of not trying to isolate myself. You know, I had to make sacrifices, but it was important not to isolate myself at the same time, and actually realize that whilst these people might not be building businesses that themselves, they are still humans, and they have their own feelings. So if I kind of share with my closest mates that I'm suffering, they're not going to think it's ridiculous. You know, they're going to kind of realize what's happening and accept the situation for what it is, and they're going to want, if they are your friends, they're going to want to help, right? So I think realizing that whilst you're doing something completely different to everyone else, you're all still people, and you all have these feelings, and it's okay to share them with others.
What did your friends make out of it when you started sharing your deep thoughts and feelings and emotions? Because for us guys, it's difficult, right? Especially
Yeah,
at the younger age, and we're like, what's anger? What's fear? What's stress? What's sadness? What's loneliness? So it's like, why have all this stuff? Just have fun,
yeah,
right?
yeah, and it's completely natural. You know, I still, even now, talking about feelings, still uncomfortable. I
Yeah.
don't do it as often as I should, but I think the important thing was that I kind of kept it quite to quite a select group of people. You know, you don't have to. You need to remember that we don't have to go around telling everyone in the world how we feel and sharing it with all our friends. You know, you can pick a select group of people that you trust, and can be anyone, right? And finding that kind of close knit group of people that you can actually share your thoughts with. For me, often it was my girlfriend, and and because we had that level of trust, so that was obviously pretty helpful for me. But yeah, I'd say the biggest thing is realizing that you don't have to share with everyone, and it's just a select group of people, and it should be people that you trust the most.
Always have a peer group, right?
Yeah, yeah, and try and make that peer group as beneficial as possible. You know, people that are actually going to help you progress. There's a classic saying that you're the sum of the five people you spend the most time with, and I think that is partly true. And I think that's where actually being an entrepreneur and being on platforms like LinkedIn helped a lot, because I was constantly surrounded by people doing this sort of thing online, and having that to kind of nudge you in the right direction and keep you on track was really helpful.
Yeah, I find I have multiple circles.
Yeah,
I have multiple circles. Some for fun, some for business, some for entrepreneurship, some for learning, some for socials, and it's just having different groups of different activities, different goals. Um, because I also have some friends that are in long term relationships, and usually I learn from them regarding relationships, and I think that's how I managed to prolong my and keep my relationships with my fiance for about 10 years plus. Was because I learned from a lot of those who's in it for a long time. Like some of them have been like 15 plus years, and then
yeah,
20 plus years, and I'm just like I'm learning off them constantly. Like how do they manage to keep it? How do they manage the arguments, disagreements, finances, things, everything.
yeah,
And it's like what keeps them happy, what keeps them entertained, what keeps them going all the time, and little surprises or activities, and it's just all these little fun stuff that they make. It's like, oh yeah, we have a weekly date night, or we have a rule where we do a weekly date night without the children,
Yeah.
at least 1 week, 1 day a week, where they do that. I was like, oh right, that's cool, and that's something that I'm gonna probably take into the future. Obviously, when that time comes. But yeah, I
Yeah.
find it fascinating. You always have to have a different type of peer group.
Yeah. It's a really important point you made, I think, because I made a post about this recently on LinkedIn that you should have different kind of mentors, if you like, for each
Mm,
walk of life. So, so my point was that yeah, I'm young, but I'm not just going to listen to anyone and everyone about anything, right? No matter what age you are, I think you need to select certain people that you're going to take advice from in certain areas. So, whilst maybe your uncle might be a great person to learn how to sustain a 40-year marriage from, if he's never run a business, he's probably not the kind of person to take entrepreneurial advice from. And I think just being selective with who you're kind of taking advice from is really helpful, and yeah, kind of lends into what you were saying there about learning from different circles.
yeah, absolutely. Because the friends that I have with long-term relationships, they're not in business,
Yeah.
but they know
Yeah.
how to keep a long-term relationship. I'm just like, okay, I learn from that.
Yeah.
That's the result, right? It's like, if we was to create long-lasting results in our lives, who can we learn from, and what can we take away from it? There's the good ones, there's the bad ones, but there's ones that adapt to work for you.
Yeah.
So it's always fascinating to do that. And when it comes to you dealing with your stress or your emotions, is there any activities that you do, or habits, hobbies?
Yeah. So meditation's been a big thing for me over the
Mm.
last few years. I think I kind of got introduced to that through my mum as well. She's a big proponent of it, and that's certainly helped. But I think actually the most beneficial thing I've done is just getting outside and being active and going to a place where you can forget about everything that's going on at your desk or on your laptop or work wise, and completely switching off from that. I've found sometimes when I'm meditating, I'm still sort of ticking over in the back of my head about what I need to do when I get back to work. But if I'm out, maybe I'm playing football or something, if I'm out doing that, I'm kind of completely in this new zone where nothing else kind of comes across my head.
That's always interesting because when I when I'm doing downtime or taking time out from work, it's just like sometimes it just doesn't switch off. But I'm not doing work. I'm not forcing myself to like progress on like doing calls or consultations or building websites or the digital stuff that I'm doing. But I'm still thinking constantly
Yeah.
like, what's the next plans? What's the next steps? What else should I be doing? What else could I be doing? But I get more clearer
Yeah.
as time goes on.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's benefits to all three. So you've
Mm.
obviously got the time where you are really focused, and then you've got what you were just saying where you're not as focused, but you're ticking away, and then obviously when you're not even ticking away, you're completely in another zone. But that kind of middle zone where you're not too focused, but your brain's still ticking over. Often that is, yeah, when you get the most clarity and when you get these genius ideas that you can't necessarily come up with when you're trying to come up with them. So I think, yeah, all three kind of stages have their merits.
Because I found studying in the intuition superconscious world, that line of work, is that the best moments of ideas come up when you're not activating your brain. So when you're not forcing your mind to come up with ideas, you're tuning into your heart or your genius or your intuition, as people say, is when you're like having a shower.
Yeah.
It's when you're having a shower. When nothing's happening, you're just having a shower, and you're just like, bing! It's like, oh my god, I've been waiting for this forever!
Yeah, I know those. There's a lot of things, a lot of thoughts that come to you in the shower that are life changers.
Yeah, that's when your intuition just works because you're calm and
Yeah,
you're not thinking of anything, and that's when your intuition usually kicks in, is when you're most calm. You're not overthinking, and I think it just comes up. But it's having the knowledge and power to know how to access that, as you know, instantly now is a
Yeah.
game changer. But used to be when you didn't know that, it's just like in the shower. It's like, oh, maybe I should just stay in the shower forever.
Yeah.
How does it come for you when you went into meditation? Because I didn't go into meditation until I think mid 25, mid 20s. I think it's when I encountered Tony Robbins, obviously.
Yeah.
Well, it was like the big guy started doing, do your meditation and breathing and stuff in his UPW training.
Yeah.
I think that's about 23, 24. And I was like, what is this meditation stuff? Like, it sounds woo woo and crazy. And what was it like for you when you tried
Similar
it?
thing actually. My mum sort of said it to me, and I was like, really? I think woo woo was the term as well. A bit sort of out there, but I caved in. I tried it, and the first few times, maybe I don't know how much I kind of benefited from it. Meditation, I think, is something that you have to practice. It's a skill. You don't just meditate once and your life's going to be changed. You have to work at it. So I think realizing that and actually sticking with it through the first couple of times where I wasn't very good at it helped a lot. And there's apps like Headspace now, which helps massively in that because it kind of maps out the learning process and makes it really simple and kind of takes you on a learning journey of meditation. So I think that's probably the key thing is realizing that and sticking with it even when it didn't seem like it was working right away.
Mm-hmm.
Was
Have
it
you
was it the
tried
same for you? Were you like, did you just get it straight away, or did you have to actually practice it as well?
constant practice? It was
Yeah.
uncomfortable at first because the type of person that I am, I'm very spontaneous and I love being active. So
Mm.
for me, like hitting the gym and all those, I just can't sit still for long periods of time, despite me doing the digital world of sitting behind the desk and stuff. But I, I'm very active and I need to do stuff spontaneously. So when you
Yeah.
tell me to sit still for half an hour to do a meditation,
Yeah.
it's just like, really? You want me to sit still half an hour just to do meditation? And I didn't know what I was getting out of it because
Yeah.
for some of my friends, they said in their meditations they get stories or they see pictures and symbols and everything. Like they see like chapters of pictures and what's going on in their meditation. And they're like, oh yeah, it's a brilliant guide and I'm getting a lot out of it. And I'm just like, I see nothing. I literally
Yeah.
see nothing, but I feel it. I
Yeah.
feel energy. So I'm more sensitive to energy than I am seeing symbols and pictures and stories and stuff in meditation, which is weird.
Yeah. But I think it has different benefits for everyone, right? Yeah.
How does it come up for you when you do meditation? Do you see symbols and stuff, or do you see more
For me it's a feeling as well. So
mm,
it's a feeling of calm
energy?
and kind of kind of losing the weight that's on your shoulders, if you like.
Do you feel energy from other people as well?
Not so much. You kind of there's people that you meet and you really bounce off them, and people that inspire you. Um, my mum, my mum's probably an amazing person to talk about this. She's an energy genius, um, energy queen. Um, so she's obviously very in touch with people's energies and the kind of energy you're giving off and other people are giving off. Um, so she's probably the perfect person to talk about it. But yeah, there's obviously certain people that kind of inspire you and captivate you, people that you're talking to, and you're instantly your attention is on them, and you're listening, and that does fascinate me. What is it about these people that kind of makes them so capturing and makes them so inspiring? But in all honesty, I don't know what it is. I couldn't tell you.
No, that's fair enough. No, I wouldn't expect you to. It took me a while to get to that area as well, but I was just find it fascinating to see, if you had that experience before, where when someone just walks into a room and you're like, ooh, not so sure about that guy
Yeah.
or that person, and just kind of this weird vibe that goes on, or energy that comes off it and off them, and you're just like, something about them that I'm not so sure about. But then once I start understanding this work, and this is completely off weird leadership, but it was understanding what's in them that's showing up or coming up for them, that's coming up for me. So if there's something going on with them, is this something that's coming off from me that's, I guess, projecting onto them?
Yeah.
So I'd be interested to find out, and I would approach that person and just to see, what's going on and where they're at in their journey. Because usually what we project is, or what we see from other people is a reflection of what we're going through internally. But a lot of the times we would avoid it because
Mm.
it doesn't feel right, right? And you're like, I'm gonna avoid that person because it doesn't feel right, or yeah, it is, and it's
Yeah.
because you get that vibe that, oh, something's going on with them that doesn't fit, doesn't seem right, so I'm gonna avoid them. But if you go and actually approach it, or approach them and find out, what's going on in their lives, and they're like, oh, I just went through a breakup, or just going through a hard time, and you're just like, maybe that's what I'm going through as well,
Yeah.
and I can relate. And that's where you talked about empathy and compassion. And so I thought, oh wow, you're already doing that already. So it's not an easy skill. So most people avoid it.
Yeah. Do you think ego comes into that as well? Do you
Yeah,
think we're scared to open
face
up
it.
to it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're definitely afraid to face it and to approach it directly, face to face, with whatever's going on internally.
Mm. That's really interesting.
And going back to your leadership role, and I guess for your experience, what really makes a good leader?
Mm. Yeah. So someone that leads by example to me is the first thing that comes to mind. I don't think as a leader you can expect anyone to do something you're not.
Mm.
So if you're if you're working in a team, maybe with employees, you can't expect your employees to work productively for 7 8 hours a day if you're not doing it yourself. Whatever it is you expect of other people, go above and beyond that yourself. Because I think that's the best way to actually get respect, for people to actually respect you as a leader and listen to what you say. As a leader, if you lose the respect of your team, it's very difficult to get that back and to actually get them to do anything. So, yeah, I think leading by example is probably the biggest thing I'd look for in a leader.
And has there been times where responsibility for you has been a big step?
Yeah, absolutely. And the responsibility to do exactly that and to lead by example is it's quite a heavy weight. It's for the first 2 years whilst I was at university before I was leading. You kind of just get by. You know,
Yeah.
it wasn't it wasn't a big deal if you didn't have a good day at training or whatever it was. And similarly with the kind of entrepreneurial stuff I was doing, when it wasn't that important, when I didn't have that much weight on my shoulders, it didn't matter if I had a week off.
Mm.
But once you kind of adopt that leadership role and you start getting, you have a position of leadership or you're getting serious about what you're doing with your business, that's when it kind of switches, and suddenly an off day isn't kind of, you can't just pass it off anymore. You've got to be at your best every day, and even if you're not kind of, if you don't feel like it, if you don't want to turn up to train today, if you're tired, sometimes you just have to show up anyway. Put that aside and show up for other people more than yourself.
Oh, I love that. What gives you the? So is it a structure you have to put in place, like a routine for you? Now that you're not obviously having that environment, how does that work
Mm.
for you?
Yeah, so I think there's two things that come in here. The first is mindset,
Mm.
and really living that mindset. You're not just a leader when you step onto the pitch or into your business. You're a leader all the time, and kind of becoming that person rather than just acting as one. The
Mm.
second are things like systems and processes. Kind of leans into the habits that you mentioned. For me, this has really helped my business, especially, is having systems that allow you to show up even when you don't want to. You can follow a very step-by-step rubric that's going to help you grow your business or just show up even on days where you don't want to. Without it, it would take a lot of effort to do that. But because you've got this system in place, this kind of process, it's very easy to actually to show up and at least do the minimum.
I love that. That's what I found with most people as well, is that they have a system or structure that they follow day to day, even if it's 2 or 3 things off the list to do. That just helps them move a little bit forward, closer to where they need to go.
Yeah. And I think it's important to systemize your most important work. So for me, this has been the biggest thing in terms of business over the last 6 months or so. It's systemizing my most important work so that, I do it in the morning. That's when I operate best. And I have a system that I know will grow my business. So before 9 a.m., I've gone through this process of growing my business before most people even start working. And kind of having that there, that I can just, it's almost like ticking boxes. It makes it as simple as that. And yeah, having that has been a real game changer.
Fantastic. If there's anyone that wants to look for more information about what you do, where can they go and how can they connect with you?
Yeah, best place is actually just on LinkedIn. My name's Sam Winsbury over there. I should be top of the search results. I don't think there are too many Sam Winsburys going around. But yeah, happy to connect with anyone listening over there.
And for the last thing, if there was people looking to step up into leadership or uncertain about responsibility or how they show up in person with branding, especially, how they should show up, where would you advise them to start?
Start with your experience and what you know. That's all you can really do is speak from your own experience. Don't try and give advice that you haven't learnt through your own experience or be someone you're not. Just accept that you have unique experience and share that information.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, Sam, for sharing your experience and your time. Always
Pleasure.
appreciate it.
No, pleasure. Thank you very much for having me on. It's been awesome chatting.
Thank you, Sam.
Thanks.